Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start with a new topic culture and personality under anthropological theories. So, culture and personality is a branch of cultural anthropology that examine the relationship between both culture and personality. And it says that there exists a reciprocal relationship between both culture and personalities. So, in simpler terms, it is culture which influences personalities and personalities also influence culture. So, if you want to understand a culture, examine its individual personalities. And then, various cultural and personality theories they explain relationship between child rearing custom and human behavior in different societies, and we will talk about them later in this chapter. So, the primary aim of culture and personality school of thought is to examine the interrelationship between culture and personality, and the attempt of this school to study culture as it is embodied in the characters of its member. The meaning of this passage is that if you want to understand any culture, then you should understand, you should examine and observe the character of all its member. So by looking at all the parts, you can arrive at this is in simple term the purpose of culture and personality school. Then this school, it is an important study in psychological anthropology. Thus, culture and personality studies, also known as psychological anthropology, and here this school it applies the principle of psychology to the field of anthropology. And the most, its beginning, it was associated with linguist and anthropologist Edward Sapir. Sapir himself was influenced by German Gestalt psychologists who had argued that perception could be understood only when the things perceived was viewed not as assemblage of separate elements but as an organized pattern. The meaning of this complex paragraph is simple. If you want to understand a whole, examine and measure all the parts. So while measuring all the parts, you can arrive at the total picture. You can arrive at the whole picture. And when this phenomena, if it applied to culture and personality school, if you want to understand any culture, the let's take example of Indian culture, then you can measure, you can observe all the parts that are inherent in it, such as you can study the Punjabi culture, Kashmiri culture, Bengali culture, Rajasthani culture, Marathi culture, Telugu culture, Dravidian culture, Odia culture, Northeastern culture, Naga culture, Kuki culture, Manipur culture. When you understand all its part, when you measure and observe all its part, so by this exercise you can arrive at the whole. This is meaning of this simple paragraph. Not simple, but a complex paragraph which has been simplified. An example is given here. At a landscape painting, one sees not a flat planes of color laid against one another, but as a whole, a landscape. So, this a landscape picture, when you see here mountains, then there are grasses, you see a hut, a very typical picture that we used to make in our childhood, and then you see here a cow feeding on grass, the sun rising against the background. So here, this whole painting it is made up of different parts: a hut, the mountain chain, the rising sun, a feeding cow, grasses, vegetation, trees, and all of them they together make it a painting, make it a landscape. So Sapir, a psychologist, or you can say a psychological anthropologist, he stress upon looking at any picture in totality, any picture in whole. So his idea, or in the back of his mind, he talked about culture. That if you want to understand a culture, look at in its totality. You look at it wholeheartedly, and that will be accomplished only if you understand, if you observe all the parts that make it a whole. So, and again, This example shows us too why a whole may be more than sum of its parts. So here, why did Sapir and Gestalt psychologists they stress upon looking at whole? Because when you look at all the elements of this landscape picture individually, a cow, feeding cow, a rising sun, a mountain chain, a tree, a hut, all of them, uh, even if you look at them individually, or even if you look all the parts by summing them up, if you look at them cumulatively, still you are not getting any way closer to the landscape that is presented in front of you. The meaning is very subtle, but it is this meaning, this particular meaning, that makes all the difference. That's why I said that the difference is very subtle. So if you sum it up, so still you would not call it a landscape. You would call a painting that is composed of trees, huts, all its parts. So even if you sum it up, sum all the parts, you would not reach the whole. The whole, whichever it is, if it is a landscape painting, if it is a culture, if it is a homogeneous organization, if it is a classroom, if it is a mob, if it is a crowd, uh, whichever way you see it, in whichever organization you say you are looking at, you need to look at it in totality to guess the ultimate perception. So this is the meaning that the whole may be more than sum of its part. Next paragraph. In this Gestalt view, meaning was a function of organized pattern, and Sapir applied this idea to his analysis of language and of culture and personality. The meaning of this passage is that if you want to understand, if you arrive at a meaning, such as if a certain whole is a landscape, then this meaning, this understanding, it is a function of organized patterns, which means that a whole, whichever it is made up of certain patterns, and it is by looking at those patterns and summing them up. Function here is a mathematical concept, just like in a mathematical equation, the function of integration, it is to sum all the available discrete variables. So let's say if you have 4, 3, 5, 6, 8, and to sum it up, you have indulged in this. You have counted these numbers by engaging in a mathematical equation that is summing up. So you have summed them up. In the same way, when you look at all the patterns, let's take another example because it is very simple. Another example, if you have been given a number series such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would be a way simpler number series. So now you are asked what would come next after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 would be followed by 8, which would be followed by 7. So this pattern, which is that the difference between the two number is 1. So the preceding number would be 1 less than the following number. 6, then which will be followed by 7. In the same way, all the tables such as 2 followed by 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. So you know it, 12 will be followed. So this is another example of organization of patterns. So it is by looking at patterns we arrive at the whole, and this is the meaning of this passage. Then the next paragraph. In an influential 1934 essay, he argued that the more fully one tries to understand a culture, the more it seems to take on the characteristic of a personality organization. And here, the meaning again is same, that if you want to understand a culture, then you need to look at, you need to observe and measure all the personalities and the organization of it. So this personality organization, it is not nothing but the sum of patterns of personalities. So let's take an example. You have been tasked with uh, providing an ethnographic account of a particular tribe. Let's say A is a tribe, and when you went on this expedition, you met different members of this tribe. One, two, three, four. And whoever you studied, all of them, they were in hurry, and they were violent, they were aggressive, they were they were not very communicative, they were not very cooperative. So here you measured different personality, you measured six personalities, and all of them, they followed the same pattern. So here, by summing the pattern, you arrive at pattern organization, at a personality organization. And the analysis of personality organization, it would lead you to a greater understanding of a culture. So this is the meaning of this passage. Now let's have a look. Culture and Personality School, 1920 to 1950. So the history of culture and personality studies of 1920s is the beginning and notice in the writing of Sigmund Freud, and he proposed what is known as critical periods hypothesis, according to which human infants went through a time and stage in which they learned what they exhibited later in their adulthood. So here, even the beginning of this chapter, it was also heralded the same thing. It also talked about the same thing, that culture and personality school, it examined relationship between child rearing customs and human behavior, because it is the it is the childhood, it is the child rearing practices that have an influence on children, that are later exhibited in adulthood. And all in all, what we constituted, what we count as a culture, is most probably the culture of adults. So if, even if you go on for recording an ethnographic account of any particular tribe or any community, you would mostly leave the children aside, you would mostly leave the kids aside, because you think that all the kids of the world, they behave in the same way. They are playful, uh, they are gruesome, they are quarrelsome, and they will exhibit all kinds of playful, giddy, troublesome, nuisance behavior loaded with tantrums, and all behavior pattern that are associated with kids. So my point is that generally we leave kids aside, because uh, we do not count them as adult. We do not think that uh, their stage, the stage of their growing up, the stage of their behavior, it can be counted as a mainstream behavior. So the, the behavior that we associate at while studying any community, it is the adult behavior, in which cannot be called, which may also be called the mainstream behavior. Like for example, um, let's say if we are talking about a political equation, like who should who should be PM. Now we know that to elect a PM, we have a universal adult franchise, that is a universal voting practice. But this universal voting practice it also has a condition that only 18 plus can vote in the process of electing a PM, a prime minister. Now, why can't we include kids here? Because we do not consider them mature enough to decide right from wrong. So this is the way the mainstream culture is accounted. So here, the meaning of the whole discussion, the whole explanation, it is that we have so far ignored kids, uh, believing that we should focus on the mainstream, the adult, the behavior that is exhibited by the adults, the pattern that is revealed by their behavior, the organization around which they perform their all-around activity, whether it is psychological, behavioral, economic, political, social, and thus we have centered around the adults only. But this school, it said that it is the human infants, it is the child rearing practices that set the stage for adult behavior. Because those child rearing practices, whichever way they are done in, they will have a profound impact on the adult personality. So, the culture and personality school, it went on to look at the roots. If the child rearing practices can exhibit such a profound influence on the adult personality, so the mainstream personality of present time, it can be influenced by taking on the child rearing practices of the kids worldwide. The Freudian hypothesis influenced early anthropological research on cosmic culture and personality, giving birth to what is known as psychoanalytic anthropology. And this culture and personality school is also an offshoot of the same, or not just offshoot, is a flower of psychoanalytical anthropology. And this perspective is best demonstrated in the works of anthropology such as Gregory Bateson, Ruth Benedict, Jeffrey Gorer, Margaret Mead. Now, let's have a look at meaning and determinants of culture. So, the anthropological meaning of culture, it is different from a popular meaning, and you can understand this difficulty of a popular meaning by looking at this statistic. There are 300 definitions of culture, but for the convenience of learners, culture herein is used to mean the knowledge that a person has acquired as a member of his society. So all the knowledge that any member acquires for survival, for easy living, for making a way through his life, it is known in some as culture. In some, you can also equate culture as all the artifacts, all the attributes, all the customs, all the things that are helpful to lead a life. So, all the parameters, whether they are learned, whether they are acquired, whether those attributes have been given by your parents or you have learned it by themselves, whichever it are, all the attributes that are helpful to live a meaningful life, they are known as culture. Let's say if you are in a cold area, so you have been you will be taught by your parents to keep yourself covered from head to toe so that you do not suffer from frostbite. So this is a cultural practice and which you have been taught by your parents. So this attribute that help you in survival, help you in living a meaningful life, it is a cultural phenomena. Then you can expand the definition, you can expand the dictionary of all the attributes, because a music and aesthetic element, it also help in living a meaningful life. All the food practices, all the customs, all the behavioral pattern, all of them in totality, they sum up to create a culture. Then it is widely believed that early enculturation in particular has a very important bearing on personality development of child. So again, the same thing is being circulated. Early enculturation means the early lesson, early teachings that are usually given by your parents, your siblings, your relatives. And one possible way to think about culture is to society what memory is to individual. This definition has been given by Cluckhall, and it includes what has worked in the experience of society so that it is worth transmitting to future generation. Now, this last line, it is worth noting. So, all the experiences of a society, because the time is dynamic, and it is not that we are going to live the same situation twice. So, by this dynamism, every society it comes before newer experiences, newer threats, newer perception, newer challenges, and it is by trial and error. It is by working on them. It is by finding multiple solution to each problem that they arrive at what solution works the best. And if a certain solution works in a particular situation, then this situation, this solution, it becomes a part of culture, and it is transmitted to future generation. And in the same way, covering your body from head to toe, or many important elements such as feeding on high fat diet, which which animal protein to eat, and how to cure yourself from cold, then again which herbs are good, which are not, which are edible, which are poisonous. So all such knowledge, it is transmitted from generation to generation, and many such different elements of knowledge, they sum up to form a culture. Now, the definition of personality. So the term personality, it is derived from the Latin word persona, meaning a mask or a character. So personality is a pattern body of habits, traits, attitude, ideas of an individual, as these are organized externally into roles and statuses, and internally to motivation, goals, and various aspects of selfhood. It is a term used in routine life as the distinctive way a person thinks, feels, or behave, but in anthropology, it is used in different sense. So the meaning of this complex paragraph is that first, the term personality, it has Latin origin, which means a mask or a character. Then, personality has been in general defined as a pattern body of habits, traits, attitudes, and ideas. Pattern means that generally these elements of your personality, they will they will be reflected out more often than not. They will be reflected frequently or regularly. For example, if you chew your nails, so this is your habit. If you wake up early in the morning, if you are a morning person, then this is your habit, and will wake up wake up early in the morning regularly and more often. So this is a pattern. Then your character traits, such as if you are impulsive, if you are thoughtful, if you are aggressive, if you ponder over things, or you just spill the beans. And next, your attitude. Whenever you face a situation, what are you going to do? Will you take on the challenge? Will you just submit yourself? Will you cry over the spilt milk? Will you try to find a solution? Can you work under pressure? Such attitude. And then ideas about your life, ideas about how your family should lead its life, ideas about how the society or an individual should function. Even the ideas can be related to your own life that you want to create for yourself. So all these patterns that occur regularly, these form a personality. And here there are two manifestation of all these patterns. First, external manifestation, such as role and statuses. So roles and statuses means that when you grow up, you certainly associate yourself with many roles. What role you are playing? For example, take I am playing my role as a teacher. And you will certainly understand this later in your life, that there is certain role that you must play, because you cannot play all the role, and you cannot take on the world. uh, you are not that giant that you can accomplish all the activities. You can engage in all kinds of activities. You can only take one role, whichever role it is. And most often it is a role that choose you. It is a philosophical thing, it is a spiritual thing, but certainly it happens that uh, you get acquainted with your role somewhere in the friction time, somewhere in the tough time that you go through. Then status is, which is not about social status, it is about the place in the hierarchy of life where you are placed. So this status, it is not discriminatory. It is not like social discriminatory practice of placing people with more money and power on higher pedestal, and poor people on the lower pedestal. It is about the status that you hold about yourself. Just as a teacher would play no role if he is among footballers, or a group of politicians. Let's say another example, if you are between group of workers, you will have no role there. A teacher would best play his role among his students, in a classroom setting, in a podium, while speaking, while talking about his explanation, his experiences, or teaching a concept, and that is his status. So these are external manifestation of personality, and the internal manifestations are motivation, goals, and various aspect of selfhood. So internal motivation is like the first, the internal motivation, it is equated, it is associated with the roles that you choose for yourself. So if you want to be a teacher, just like I am a teacher, and I know I am a teacher because this is the role I can play. I can explain things, I can make things understand, and somehow this profession, this role, it it affiliates with me, and this is my motivation, this is my goal, and this is how I associate with the society, that I am a teacher. In the same way, a politician, a doctor, an engineer, a drummer, a guitarist, a musician, a composer, a motivational speaker, a farmer, a gardener, a manufacturer, a sales marketing expert, a data analyst, a data scientist, a software engineer, all of them, they have different roles, and there is no dearth of such roles. But that role, it should be a part of your selfhood. So this is how personality is organized, and it is how this manifests in both personal and private spheres. Sorry, I got it wrong. In personal and public sphere. So, final thing, in anthropology, the term personality, it is used in different sense, but the meaning is somewhere close. Funder in 1997, he defined personality as an individual's characteristic pattern of thoughts, emotion, and behavior, together with a psychological mechanism hidden or not behind those patterns. So again, it is the anthropological definition of personality. It also talks about the patterns. Patterns of what? Of patterns of thoughts, how you think, how you analyze the situation, how you come up with a solution, then how you react to certain situations in your life, how you cope up with difficult circumstances, how you cope up with euphoria, with joyous and ecstatic thinking, ecstatic behaviors. Then finally, the behavior pattern, which is how your thoughts manifest themselves in behavior, such as if you come up with a difficult situation, or if you come up with a threat that you do not need in your life, if you come up with a toxic personality, if you come up with um, joyful experience such as winning a lottery. So how your thoughts at that time will be will manifest in behavior. And all of these patterns, together with the psychological mechanism, they pattern up to form your personality. Now, the definition by Linton, he defined personality as individual's mental qualities in the sum total of his rational faculties, perception, ideas, habits, and conditional emotional responses. And again, thing is same. It is talking about the same pattern, and here those pattern they have been equated with mental qualities. So those mental qualities they reflect via perceptions, ideas, habits, and emotional responses. So the meaning of this is clear. Now the next paragraph, the personality of every individual within the society develops and functions in constant association with its culture. In short, personality embraces the total organized aggregate of psychological processes and status pertaining to the individual. Now, the meaning of this passage, it it has certainly um, certainly attributed a mathematical equation in linear terms, mathematical equation in verbal terms. So the problem of the complex that we are seeing, it is to verbalize a mathematical equation. The meaning here is that the proportional relationship between culture and personality of individual, and both of them they are in a fluid relationship. And this fluid relationship, now which equation determine, because fluid relationship which means that yes, we know that personality of every individual, it is influenced by culture, but how that influence can be measured. So that's how we come up in face to face with the mathematical solution, that this relationship between a personality and a culture, it is fluid, and that fluid is determined in this way, that personality of any individual, it embraces the total organized aggregate of psychological processes and status pertaining to the individual. So the individual personality, it works in consonance with a culture, with his own culture. How that it takes on the or the total culture. I'm talking about I'm trying to simplify it via simplifying and verbalizing this mathematical thing. So, this total is the culture of an individual, and this is the personality of that individual. Now, this total, it is also all the sum of personality of all the members, they are part of it. So, here we have a certain equation that this personality, if it is counted as one, and let's say there are 100 others which make up the culture, so it is 1 against 100, this proportion 1 against 100. Now this 100, they have, again, because personality, it is a pattern of all the physical and emotional responses, pattern of physical and emotional responses, and these 100, the total culture, it also reflect the pattern and pattern of emotional and physical responses of 100%. So we have a pattern of 100% against a pattern of 1%. So here this one personality, it will be influenced by the pattern of 100 persons. They will demand something of him, and his worldview, his physical responses, his emotional responses, all will be conditioned by what he sees in the 100% that he is a part of. In other words, this one personality, it is also a part of many other personalities, and all of them, they sum up to form a culture. So the same culture, his personality, he whatever his personality attributes are, let's say his emotional and physical responses, so both of them, they are also influenced by, they also got the motivation, also got the precedent. Very sorry, my daughter is crying, that's why I need to pause the video every now and then. So I was talking about the ideas, all of the emotional and physical responses that a personality reflects, all of them, they are also derived from the same community he belongs. So this is the relationship, the loop relationship, the closed loop relationship that let's take an example. Uh, if you are in certain culture, and that culture, it demands that you attend the social organizing, the social ceremonies. So this is an attribute. This is, you can say, a stimulus that need you to act, because this stimulus, it will arise a response from you. Now you can respond in two ways. First, you will go. Second, don't go. First go and no go. Now this response, it is conditioned by the very society you are in. Suppose all the 100 members of your society, they follow this custom. They follow this stimulus that whenever there is any social setting, whenever there is any social gathering, they attend it. They make their presence there. So in that way, you are conditioned to go, because if you do not follow this situation, if you negate this, if you don't want to go at any cost, then you will be an outsider, and you will have no other relationship with all the members, because this the social ceremony, this stimulus, it is not only about attending a particular function. You also have many other elements in your life, such as um, how your family should um, live by. You will also have bad times. Then you will also need people to attend your functions. You will also organize something such as your brother's wedding, if maybe your sister's wedding, maybe a simple social ceremony. And if you did not attend any ceremony, you you cannot assume that all of them, they will attend your ceremonies. Then it is likely that none of you will have any relationship with you. You will be an outcast here. So, this relationship, which may not happen politically, but in social situation, you will be an outcast. Nobody will have any relationship with you, and even if some will, most of this the relationship, it will be either under the radar of the works, or they will be some formal relationship. So all in all, your personality and your responses to any stimulus, they are conditioned by the society you live in. And let's say you live in a, you can say, a western society here. Now there are no social functions. The society in western culture, it is individualistic, individual oriented, and you do not need to follow any social gathering. You do not need to attend to any social organization, social functions, social settings. Now, if you are certainly placed in that situation wherein the roles are opposite, the situations are opposite, and seek you you are looking for such a social function for yourself, so that you can attend it. You need people around you. You need that people uh, call you, people invite you for in their weddings, in their, you know, this child annotation ceremony, mundan, vivaha, all kinds of ceremonies. But the, the society, the culture you are in, they do not follow such a practices. Then again, you will become an outcast because this is how it works. You will be conditioned by the culture you are in. So your behavior, your responses, both emotional and physical, they are conditioned by the total of personality characters of the society you live in. This is the meaning of this complex passage. Now, let's have a look at the main factors or determinants which affect personality formation. So, these are environment, heredity, culture, and peculiar experiences. So, the influence of geography or physical environment plays an important role in determining the variation in personality construction of members of a group. So, according to physical environment, human come to form ideas and attitude where he or she lives. A close relationship exists between environment, culture, and personality. And this relationship is so much so that it is environment that determines cultural development. And the the height of this relationship it can be gauged via the claim of 18th century philosopher Montesquieu, who claimed that the bravery of those blessed by a cold climate enabled them to maintain their liberties. Great heat, according to him, weakens courage, while cold cause certain vigors of body and mind. So the people who live in mountain as well as deserts are of usually bold, hard, and powerful. So this claim was given by a philosopher, and most of these observations they are not scientific but personal or in general philosophical. But yet you can see the relationship between environment and personality construction. He said that cold climate it enable people to maintain their liberty because cold climate it cause vigor of body and mind, and this vigor, this personality attribute, this bravery, it is a cause of cold climate. And he also attributed that the people who live in mountain and desert, which means people who live in tough areas, they are usually bold, hard, and powerful. So yes, we do not have such generalization, and we do not have scientific data to know the veracity of these claims. But culturally, these are somewhere right. That people who live in hard area, people who live in less resources, they are usually hardy. But then there are also difference between different tribes, different communities that live in different areas. South Koreans or you can North Americans, Chinese, African, Nigerians, Swedish, Scandinavians, Russians, all of them they have different cultures, different personality attributes because they have different geographical environments. Now, heredity is another factor which determines the trait of human personality. So, some of the similarities in human groups are said to be due to common heredity. Because human, we if we live in a common culture, so most of the people that are there, all of them, they are product of their needs, their biological needs, such as food, intimacy, survival, growth. So all such biological needs they are controlled by heredity, that is inheritance of genetic material, and this inheritance it is done by reproduction. And all the people of a common culture, they will also have such common biological needs, and those common biological needs will also be fulfilled by the common geography in which they live. Because, for simple example, if you are born, let's say Maharashtra, So all the people of Maharashtra, especially the people who live in the core of this geographical territory, so all of them, they have a certain common culture. So when we talk about the basic biological needs such as food, so the food, it will be met by those those staples, those edibles that are readily available in the geographical settings. So most of the food varieties that are available there. So the diet, it is usually diverse, and along with diet, there are also other physical environmental phenomena that are typical of or of a certain geography. So Maharashtra, it has a different climate. Most of us, know that usually during monsoon, Maharashtra, which is situated usually near the passage of Arabian branch of monsoon, Arabian branch of monsoonal wind, it receives higher rainfall. So this physical environmental setting, it also determine the cultural type, the personality type of the individual, who even if they have their basic biological needs met, the common heredity, it will also be influenced by such common physical environmental effects. Next, some sets of biological needs and capacities are inherited by human groups in every society. And these common biological needs and capacity explain some of the similarities in personalities of a particular group. For example, humankind tends to resemble his parents in physical appearance and intelligence. And I would like to highlight further this fact that it is heredity associated, not associated, clubbed with the physical environmental factor. It determines the personalities, especially the physical responses. So usually it is generally believed that the society which are bestowed with plenty of staple, plenty of basic resources, they are usually uh, happy going. You can take example of the people of Gujarat and people of Punjab. So both of these states, they have been bestowed with plenty of everything. So the personality types here are usually, they do not much care about the hoarding of accumulation of resources. So how is this personality attribute associated with heredity? It is that because of plenty, they have certain kind of physical similarities between them, and this physical similarity, maybe they have their nutritional uptake up to a certain extent, and now uh, all of the vital needs, all of the nutritional needs that are met, and it is usually seen that when your most of your biological, most of your physical needs are met, then the personality type that is reflected, it is certainly of a carefree nature, especially if not carefree, uh, non-violent or non-quarrelsome nature. So this is again a work of heredity on personality, but heredity by itself, it does not mold human personalities, and it does not have any independent influence on molding human personalities. It is one of the determinants that provide the material out of which experience will mold the personality. So as I have said, that heredity, especially inheritance of genes. So inheritance of genes by themselves, they do not have any say on personality types, because personality is especially a cultural construct. It is an abstract concept, and it is not inherited. Culture by itself is not inherited, and most of the all of the kids, all of the children that are born, that they are born blank. They're born as a blank slate. They do not inherit any cultural attribute. But then it is there, it is heredity which reinforces all other aspects of life that mold the personality. So it acts as a raw material because it is heredity that helps in reproduction, that helps in the progress of generation, and it is also heredity that it happens in not only human but also other uh, other animate things such as plant species, other animal species, other sceneries, other climatic phenomena. Um, by climatic phenomena, I mean reproduction in animal forms, in plant forms. So it is the overall this pattern. It molds human personality by acting as a reinforcer or a supplier of raw material. An example is given here that because of heredity, an individual may be energetic. Like if the physical element, the physical capacity, the genes for physical capacity, the genes of vigor, which has been inherited by an offspring, they may make him energetic. But whether he is active or whether he indulges in energetic activities, it is a matter of his training. Now, finally, culture. So, culture plays a valuable role in personality development, and it is the subjective aspect of a culture. The personality is the subjective aspect of culture, and most of the anthropologists and sociologists they look at personality and culture as two sides of the same coin. And Spiro, he has given this definition. He considered personality as an individual aspect of culture, whereas culture is the collective aspect of personality. So, this is the feedback, this is the reinforcing mechanism that works between culture and personality both. So, in every culture, a particular type of personality develops. And according to Frank, culture is a coercive influence dominating the individual and molding his personality by virtue of his ideas, conception, and beliefs. The culture furnishes the raw material out of which individual makes his life. So, meaning of these lines, meaning of this passage, it describes the relationship that exists between culture and personality. And overall, we are also talking about the same school, and we have talk about it in detail that culture has a major influence on formation of personality, and every culture, whichever culture it is, whichever whichever geographical pocket it belongs to, it it is bound to have it is bound to reflect or manifest in a particular type of personality, and it happens. You can take example of Gorkha. You can take example of many martial caste. You can take example of Zuni and Kwakiutl, and this is not the norm. It may there will be individual variations, but every culture will have common personality. And again, the I do not need to explain the same thing that the individual personality is the product of many such personalities that form a culture. So all such personalities they make up all their pattern behavior, all their pattern emotional responses, they make up to form a culture. So culture is in a way is nothing but the pattern physical and emotional responses of its member. Culture is the character of its people, and culture has a coercive influence that it molds the personality by virtue of ideas, conception, and beliefs. So again, the reinforcing mechanism is that culture is made up by the character of its personalities, and the character of its personalities it is made up by the various attributes of a culture. So, all the virtues, all the ideas, conception, beliefs, customs, rights, all of them, they made up, they form a culture. And it is these attributes that are learned by its member who themselves form individual personality but reflect a common culture. And last, personality is determined by another factor, namely situational experience. So there are two types of experiences. First, that stem from continuation association with one's group, and second, that arise suddenly and not likely to recur. So in type 1, people who interact with child daily have a major influence on its personality. So such as those people, parents, one's peers, one's siblings, friends, all of them, they help in socialization, they help in enculturation, and they influences a particular personality. And this influence, it is known as process of socialization. So this socialization, it ranged from social rituals to table manners to getting along with others, and they are consciously inculcated in the child by parents, by his peers. The child, the first teacher, whose first teachers are parents, he learns everything from his parents' language to behavior and tries to copy and imitate them. And in the second type, the group influence is relatively greater in earlier childhood because after a child is weaned off, that is, the breastfeeding period is over, kids usually are, are not kept at home, and they usually do not stay at homes. They play with their neighbors, they play with other children, they play with their schoolmates, they enroll in various classes, and this socialization, it is also a product of the biological thing. So again, the heredity factor is here. If a child, if is a, he has a gene which make him vigorous and energetic, so he is most likely to go out, most likely to pursue, most likely to be this extrovert personality. So this second type, second group, which is can be clubbed as peer group, all of them, they have greater influence in early childhood, and this group interaction, it molds child's personality. And personality may also be influenced and inferred by social situations. Personality traits, they tend to be specific response to particular situation than general behavior pattern. So it may happen that the certain situation, certain dynamic situation, they need responses, they need prompt responses, prompt and attentive responses, and those responses, they may not be a part of general behavior pattern. They may be situational, but they also form a part of personality traits, such as the aggressiveness. So most children, even if they usually stay calm, but maybe at another time they reflect such a behavior, such outburst of anger, such um, erroneous activities. But most of these activities, they are situational, and usually all of us, we shy them away that yes, this is how kids behave, and we do not need to take these activities seriously. Finally, the combined influence of these factors, however, the relative contribution of each factor to development personality varies with the characteristic and personality it proceed and involve with the individual concern. The meaning of this passage is that all of these factors, they in combined influence a certain personality, but they are variations in development of personality, and those variations that depend upon the culture, the personality involved, and the individual concerned. Then, next passage, culture and personality theories argue that personality types were created in socialization, and they place particular emphasis on child rearing practices such as feeding, weaning, and toilet training. The next passage, Sigmund Freud was one of the first psychologists to break the barrier between anthropology and psychology, and we will talk about this one in the part 2 of the lecture. So, this is it. Thank you very much.